We see a big, beautiful house and meet Dani, who is fixing a wooden panel on her floor. She goes down and a camera clicks some pictures as she walks by, and it keeps clicking pictures at regular intervals. She goes upstairs and receives a message on her phone, and next we meet Ivan, who works in a psychiatrist hospital. Here we see many different patients and meet Dr. Tadhg, who works here and is Dani's husband. Dani says she has finally found mobile signal upstairs and asks whether she can invite her sister Darcy for dinner. Dani says she is worried about Darcy's health, and Tadhg says he will ask her for dinner and also about her health. Dani calls and leaves a message for Darcy, saying she finally has network in the new house. At night, she has decided to spend the night in a tent and goes outside to get her jacket. Dani feels somebody is here and uses her flashlight to check, but sees nobody and goes inside. She locks the door but hears some noise outside, so checks the door again and opens a small window. She meets a man named Olin who tells her she is in trouble and he saw someone enter the house. He says someone quietly entered the door when she went to the car and asks her to let him in. Dani does not believe him and sees Olin's one eye is fake and says her husband will be back soon. Olin says Tadhg works night shifts at the hospital, and Dani realizes Olin is a former patient of Tadhg. Olin says he heard someone and knows Dani is in danger and asks her to open the door to let him in so he can help her. Dani feels scared, asks if someone is in here, but gets no reply. She tells Olin she will call the police if he doesn't go. Olin asks her to call the police, but Dani says her mobile is in the car outside and asks Olin what he'll do if she opens the door. Olin says he will come inside and take a look, and if he finds no one, he will go away from there. Dani thinks about this and goes towards the door to open it, and later we see a patient in the hospital. He hears some noise and opens the door and sees something and gets scared and hides under his bed. After some time, he goes outside and finds Olin's dead body on the ground and picks up his fake eye. Next, we meet Darcy, who is Dani's twin sister who is blind and has an antique shop where Tadhg comes to meet her. Darcy says not to touch and steal anything as all items here are cursed, and the curse is lifted when someone purchases the item. She says many people who have stolen items come to give it back to her once they realize it is cursed. Darcy recognizes Tadhg has come to visit her, and we come to know Dani has died few months back. Tadhg asks her about a bell he notices, and Darcy says the bell is haunted and belongs to a dead bellboy in hotel. She says anyone who rings the bell is killed by bellboy, and Tadhg does not believe her and asks to ring it. Darcy says it is dangerous as the bell is cursed and last two persons who rang the bell died. Tadhg doesn't believe her since he is a doctor who believes in science, and Darcy goes to put the bell away. Tadhg says he has come here to give her Olin's fake eye as Darcy wanted it, and they found it with another patient. Tadhg feels guilty that Olin was discharged, and he went and killed Dani, but Darcy says it was not his fault. Darcy says she will use the eye and find why Olin killed her sister, and use her techniques to find the cause. Tadhg invites Darcy to visit him for dinner, and tells her she has found love again in Yana, who works at the hospital. Darcy is surprised to know this, and Tadhg says Yana helped him overcome grief when Dani died. Later, Darcy goes to her home and replays the last voice message she received from Dani. Darcy had asked Dani to put a camera in her house to click pictures at regular intervals to capture anything unusual. She wanted Dani to be safe before moving in a new house and beginning her renovations at the house. Darcy opens the napkin and uses her hand to feel the eye and gets some visions from Olin and Dani. She also sees a masked man on the day of murder and goes back to her shop and opens a wooden box. Later, Tadhg meets Yana, who tells him she couldn't sleep at night as she was alone since he was working. Tadhg says he will soon shift to day shift and sees Yana has found Dani's camera, which has many pictures of them. Yana shows a picture to Tadhg saying she found a picture of Dani which was taken 2 days ago. Tadhg says it must be a glitch, but Yana says last night she saw some lady's ghost standing upstairs. Tadhg says she must be imagining things, and there is no such thing as ghost, and Yana shows him a box. She says Darcy has sent this box and sees Darcy is standing outside the door waiting for them. They are surprised to see her, and Tadhg invites her in and makes her meet Yana and asks why she is here. Darcy says Tadhg invited her for dinner last week, and since it's Dani's death anniversary today, she decided to come. Ted says he is going to work and Yana will be staying in the city, so no one will be at house tonight. He says Darcy should have called first. He asks if he can drop her back home, but Darcy asks if she can stay here. Ted says he can't miss work because of his patients and says she can stay here, but she will be alone. Darcy agrees, and she opens the wooden box, and Ted and Yana are surprised to see what's inside the box. Darcy says this belonged to her mother and wants Ted to have it as a gift, and Ted thanks her. He says he is worried she has to be alone here for night and asks her about her health. Darcy says her cancer is fine and all reports came back good, and Ted shows her the bathroom. Yana brings some blankets for Darcy and tells Ted she doesn't want Darcy in the house. Ted says he tried to make her leave, but Darcy didn't listen and asks Yana to leave soon and goes to work. Yana closes the box and we see a wood puppet inside, and Darcy says a witch gave this gift to her mother. Yana says he finds the gift weird and asks Darcy to take it back, and Ted reaches the hospital. He checks a patient's file and sees some drawings made by him and finds them to be bizarre. Later, Yana packs her luggage and says goodbye to Darcy and finds the puppet is out of the box. The puppet is sitting on the table and finds it weird but decides to leave, but can't find her car keys. She searches the car and the entire house but still can't find the keys, so she decides to stay the night. Later, while having dinner, Yana says she met Ted 2 years ago, and we see the puppet looks weird and has an open mouth. Darcy says she runs an antique store which was given to her by her mother and she can read objects. She says she can touch objects and know things about the owner, and she has psychic powers. Yana is impressed by her and says she feels scared staying here alone at night since Danny was murdered here. Yana says she would never allow any strange person enter the house like Danny did and calls her stupid. Darcy gets angry on Yana and says her sister wasn't stupid and says Olin didn't kill her sister. We see that day Danny didn't open the door, and Olin said she will go to town and get the police. He asks her to stay close to the door and open it and run if she hears anything and leaves from there. Danny checks if he is gone but hears some noise and calls Olin for help, but he is gone from there. She takes a hammer for protection and sees the camera and decides to check the pictures in her tent. She closes the tent, and while checking the pictures she sees a masked man was captured in the photo. She gets scared and opens the tent to check and finds the same man in front of her waiting outside. The man kills Danny, and Yana says Ted told her Olin was mentally disturbed and killed his mother also. Darcy says Olin's mother used to hit him and had blinded him in one eye, and he killed her to protect himself. Yana says if Olin didn't kill Danny, then who did it? We see before Danny's murder Ivan caught Olin praying at late night. He tells Olin to go to sleep, and Olin says he is being released next week as his treatment is over. Ivan says he knows Olin killed his mother and says he should not be released and warns him to go to sleep. Yana asks how Darcy knows Olin didn't kill Danny, and Darcy shows her Olin's fake eye she got from Ted. At the hospital, Ivan and Ted are playing chess, and Ivan asks Ted if he wants to go on a boys' trip with him. Ted says he wants to complete his sleep on weekends and spend time with Yana, and Ivan asks her about Darcy. Ted is surprised to know Ivan knows about Darcy, and Ivan says few days back he entered an antique shop and saw Danny's twin sister in it. He says he got shocked to her and realized Darcy was her twin sister and blind, and Ted gets a call from Yana. She says she has lost her keys and is feeling uncomfortable as Darcy is talking about Danny's death. Yana says Darcy knows who killed Danny and says Ivan, who works for Ted, has killed her, and Ted is shocked to hear this. He tells Yana that Darcy is not well and he will come and talk to her, and Yana feels Darcy took her keys. Ted asks her to go to sleep and lock her room, and Ted says he will try to come early, and Yana sees Darcy has slept. She sees the puppet is looking up at her and gets scared and drops her phone and goes down to get it. She touches the puppet to see if it is real and also puts her finger in its mouth and notices some holes on head. He uses a scissor and pulls out some hair, a picture of Danny and Darcy as kids, and another picture when they are old. She also finds a tooth and a bottle of blood in the head and feels weird, and Darcy shouts on her and asks her to put everything back. Yana puts everything back and goes back to her room, and Darcy sits on the table in the same position as the puppet. At night, Yana uses the bathroom downstairs and sees someone has switched off the lights when she is inside and gets scared. She opens the door to check and sees Darcy sleeping at the table and goes back to her room and watches videos on camera. She watches old videos of Danny and Ted, and while watching the video sees ghost of Danny in it, and gets scared. The camera falls down and clicks a picture in the room where Yana sees Danny's ghost is standing near her. Yana gets scared and runs downstairs from there and hears someone coming down and tries to wake Darcy. She hears the wooden box close and goes near it and opens it to find her keys inside and goes outside. She sees the house lights close and sees Danny's ghost coming and runs from there in her car, and Darcy is still sleeping. Later, Ted comes to the house and sees the puppet downstairs and goes up to find Yana, but she isn't there in the room. He finds Darcy is on the ground and asks about Yana. Darcy says Danny's ghost scared her away, and Ted asks her about Ivan. Ted says Ivan works in the hospital with him and why she told Yana that Ivan killed Danny, and when they know Olin killed her. Darcy says Olin came to save Danny and she killed Olin in the hospital after Danny died thinking he killed her. Ted feels Darcy is not well and imagining things and asks her to come to the hospital with her so he can check her. Darcy says no and says she is not mad and knows Ivan killed her sister and asks Ted to send Ivan to her so she can kill him. Ted says Ivan and Danny have never met, so why he would kill her, and Darcy says because Ted asked Ivan to kill Danny. Ted is shocked to hear this, and Darcy says he should have told Danny he didn't love her anymore and should have left her instead of killing her. We see Ted told Ivan that Danny will be alone at home at night, so he can kill her easily, and he can't divorce her. If she comes to know about her affair with Yana, Danny will get the house and all his money, and Ted will be. Olin heard their conversation through the air vent, and Ted asks Ivan to kill her in the tent quickly and painlessly. Darcy says she planned to kill Ted, but now wants to expose him so he loses everything, and Ted denies all this. He says Darcy is making up things and says he will call the police detective who handled Danny's case, and Darcy agrees. Ted says he has the officer's number at hospital and he will go back and call Darcy and make her talk to him so she can understand. He says he is leaving his phone on the floor and asks her to pick it up when it rings and leaves from there. After reaching hospital, Ted calls Darcy, and it starts ringing and Darcy gets up, and we see a hole in the floor. Ted had removed the wooden panel from the floor when Darcy was talking to him, and we come to know he really had Danny killed. He calls his phone again, and Darcy goes to pick it up and falls down, and Ted meets Ivan and tells they have a problem. Sometime later, Ivan comes to the house and sees the puppet and finds Darcy lying on the floor. Her leg is broken, and she is bleeding from her head. He calls Ted and informs that his plan worked and Darcy is badly injured and will die soon, and Ted feels relieved. Darcy looks up at Ivan and says we are connected and does a hand gesture, and Ivan sees the puppet is looking at him. He decides to leave from there and notices the camera is flashing in the room and hears some noise downstairs. He sees the puppet is not at the table but standing near the stairs and starts walking towards Ivan. He gets scared and runs upstairs and sees the puppet following him, and we see Darcy doing the hand gestures. He jumps from the first floor to save himself, but injures his leg, and the puppet comes down and lifts Ivan. Darcy sees Danny standing above the hole and peacefully passes away, and later we see Ivan is alive in the hospital. Ivan is a patient here, and Ted has him admitted here, since Ivan feels a puppet attacked him in the house. Ted says the puppet isn't alive because he went back to the house and burned it, and Ivan says he wants to confess to his crimes. Ivan says he will tell the police he killed Danny on his own, and Ted says he should not have hired an ex-mental patient to work here at the hospital. He says if he confesses, police will also question Ted and come to know about Danny, and he will lose his license. Ted says he can't allow Ivan to confess and goes away from there and releases another patient in Ivan's room. This patient is a cannibal who comes in Ivan's room and bites his toe and kills him, and later Ted calls Yana. She tells him not to call her again, and she doesn't want anything to do with Ted, and Ted comes home to find a parcel. He sees the parcel is from Darcy, who sent it to him before dying, and he opens it to find the bell he saw in her shop. He puts the bell on the table and decides to ring it since he does not believe in ghosts and rings it. He notices nothing has happened and smiles and relaxes, but suddenly we see the ghost of Bellboy behind him.